Who do you trust? New York Times! Who else? CNN! Maybe even Fox News! Except don't trust any of them. I don't trust any of them. They're all full of shit. If nothing else with this current election, I think that we've seen the current media establishment's bias on display for all to see. I'm not drawing a moral equivalency between either of the candidates here, and this does not mean that I'm going to stop mocking all of them, as we've done, which in internet land is blasphemy. If you look at the media coverage, it's tough to know exactly. I've seen numbers as high as 90% negative coverage of Trump versus Hillary. I've seen as high as 10-to-1 ratios of coverage of Trump's sexual harassment allegations versus WikiLeaks. I think everybody at this point even knows, including leftists, that the media is trying to drag their cackling corpse that is Hillary Clinton across the finish line. So I want to give you some concrete examples that I think can be fairly put side by side for comparison in how the media has handled Trump scandals and Hillary Clinton scandals. First up, the sex stuff. I think it goes without saying that everybody knows about the infamous
grab him by the pussy,
which is still funny. So Donald Trump said this, he was caught saying this, he paid the price for saying this, nobody is denying that he said this. But the cascade that followed this with allegations completely unsubstantiated, which dominated the airwaves, burying the WikiLeaks that entire time, got to the point of being absurd. Think about the New York Times feature for a second. A woman simply comes forward, says Donald Trump reached up my skirt in a 747 40-something odd years ago, and it gets published, front page New York Times. That's it. Nothing else was needed. They dined on that for a week. I'm not saying it's okay to do that in first class. If you do it, do business class. You're just between the middle. You're under the radar.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison?
Think, Donald, think. Some of these may be true. Some people may have ulterior motives. The truth is probably, as usual, somewhere in the middle. Let's contrast that with the media's handling of the Clintons' long and storied history of sexual abuse. Now, there are so many examples, from inappropriate touching to flat-out allegations of rape, which have been ignored by the media. So let's try and limit it to the ones that directly involve Hillary, because Bill's not running for office. Now, many young people only know the name Monica Lewinsky, and you don't think that it's a big deal that the President of the United States used his position of power for sexual favors from a young, if slightly rotund intern, ruining a perfectly good green dress. Blue? It was blue. She would have looked better in green. What about the names of Paula Jones, Sally Perdue, Catherine Wiley, Jennifer Flowers, Juanita Broderick, among others, who have come forward with actual allegations of rape? Allegations that were more substantiated than the current ones against Donald Trump. How does Hillary Clinton tie into this? Well, she dismissed the accusers against her husband as bimbo eruptions. The Washington Post, not known for being right-leaning, wrote she discredited claims later revealed to be true and worked behind the scenes to help manage the allegations. Of course, when it was convenient for her, hashtag I'm with her, she's breaking through the glass ceiling, she said that all victims of sexual assault deserve to be believed. When asked if the sentiment applied to all of her husband's accusers, many of whom came forward in court, some of whom with which they had to settle huge amounts of cash, she said, and I quote, "I would say that everybody should believe it first, until they are disbelieved on evidence." Also, Hillary Clinton defended a child rapist and laughed about it.
You're the devil and that dog is a hell beast.
Second example, the media's handling of the Trump Foundation versus the Clinton Foundation. Now, the Trump Foundation has absolutely had some problems, for example, using foundation funds to bail out Donald Trump or family members personally. They failed to register as a nonprofit in certain states prior to fundraising. Now, none of this is good, but if this is here and Newt Gingrich is here, Hillary Clinton is, you can't even see. We don't have a big enough lens.
it's too small, believe me.
I don't need a camera that'll big it.
Oh, what?
That'll big it.
The Clinton Foundation, whose board is made up of all the Clintons' closest buddies with no oversight committee, no term limits for board members, and really just no outside voices other than the Clintons and people who don't want to get whacked.
Sorry.
There's a litany of things we could go through with the Clinton Foundation. Sometimes donations being made when she gives private speeches, exchanging of monies that you see in a lot of nonprofit foundations. But the biggest problem, of course, is the Clintons shamelessly accepting of foreign donations. For those who don't know, that's not just frowned upon, it's illegal. It's highly illegal. And some of these donations come from foreign entities in the Middle East who have a vested interest in seeing the toppling of the United States. The Clintons in this campaign, who have so much more money than Donald Trump are funded in part by foreign countries who want you and I to die or start facing Mecca 5 times a day. Which reminds me, sorry, excuse me. Of course, let's not forget about the 2010 Haiti earthquake relief funds, which just mysteriously vanished.
Where is the diamond? Where is the diamond? Do you see a diamond?
You should have thought of that before you tried to join forces with the Clintons and your Haitian voodoo. You've made your bed. Now lie in it. Number 3, this one's pretty significant. The media's handling of Donald Trump's tax returns versus WikiLeaks. To set the stage, if only the media had demanded the release of Hillary's emails half as ardently as they wanted the release of Donald Trump's tax returns. Now, I'm not saying that Donald Trump shouldn't have released his tax returns. It is customary, and I would have liked to see them. But I really would have liked to see the emails. What did we learn from the WikiLeaks emails? Well, you can click right here on my in-depth video with the top 5 WikiLeaks revelations, which included media collusion, the Clinton Foundation, all kinds of stuff with Podesta, how they screwed Bernie Sanders, and that Barack Obama knew about the private email server. But the media barely covered it, and their justification was,
it's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media.
Okay, that's true. But how were Donald Trump's tax returns procured?
The Trump tax returns were stolen as well when they were mailed to the New York Times. You guys didn't object to that. In fact, you jumped all over them.
Well, we don't know where those tax returns come from.
Well, they weren't.
We don't know where those tax returns came from. We're pretty sure WikiLeaks was the Russians. We're pretty sure the tax returns from Donald Trump came from Lil Jon and The Apprentice. Okay! Robbie Mook. What a mook! Was a layup, I'm sorry. Again, I'm not justifying either person lying on either of these fronts. What I am talking about here, this is key, let's continue with this, is the media's treatment of the candidates and how wildly different it is. Number 4, violence at rallies and or at the center of the campaigns. Of course, the media jumped all over Michelle Fields, Corey Lewandowski's rough handling of her, which I think was at least inappropriate. And of course, the media ran with the stories for weeks on Donald Trump inciting violence at rallies. You've all seen the tapes. None of that's okay. We talked about that too. But now we've seen on camera from Project Veritas that the DNC and left-leaning nonprofit organizations have deliberately, proactively, repeatedly sent in agitators to Trump rallies to incite violence.
At Trump rallies, we're starting anarchy here. The campaign pays DNC, DNC pays Democracy Partners pays the Fogel Group goes and executes the shit on the ground.
Donald Trump says, I'd like to punch someone in the face. Media dines out on it for a week. What do they say when this happens on camera?
There's no evidence whatsoever that we have been able to find that anyone ever did anything like this when they were working for the DNC.
For reference, no evidence whatsoever is actually a synonym for I don't like your question, Jake, and I won't respond to it. Which brings us to number 5, our final point. Attacks against free speech and the press. This is where people get mad at me being even-handed, but my biggest problem with Donald Trump has been his repeated attacks on the press, threatening to sue, and expanding the libel laws as it relates to the First Amendment. You already can't slander, libel is illegal, and there are courses of action to take. Donald Trump has taken them many times. The First Amendment, not only to what we do here, but to any American, is paramount. And we need to demand 100% adherence and respect to the First Amendment as it exists. So the media will trot out over 3,500 lawsuits from Trump, which granted is a lot, but a lot of those are business related or somehow political. They don't all involve the media. Right now, he's been threatening to sue the New York Times or these publications that have had women come forward without any kind of evidence or substantiation. Now, you don't have the right, and I don't want a candidate who sues for negative coverage or because someone says something about him that he doesn't like, but if someone is coming forward saying this man raped me and there's no proof and it's being run as fact and the people running that know there's no proof, that is libel. That is slander. But the First Amendment doesn't need to be expanded. There are already laws for that, let's be clear. Hillary Clinton, however, wants to eradicate the First Amendment as it stands through a constitutional amendment. We've talked about this. She wants an amendment to overturn Citizens United, which was an amendment to protect free speech as it relates to censorship of political views. I'm not saying there aren't flaws with the implementation of Citizens United. What is important here is Citizens United was ruled on by the Supreme Court specifically because Hillary Clinton was trying to use a loophole law to silence a film that was critical of her. At its core, Citizens United exists because the Clinton mafia tried to squash independent filmmakers under their giant fat boots. Repealing Citizens United would be antithetical to exactly why the First Amendment exists. To protect political speech. Yes, it protects all speech, but it was designed to protect political and religious speech. Not so much Nazi memes or pornography on the internet. Though that too, and this is what's so important, the media who've jumped all over Trump for wanting to sue women who've come forward with no evidence and allegations of rape, not only are fine with the reversal of Citizens United, they support Hillary Clinton. Media, people who are supposed to be informing you, are actively advocating on how to do away with the First Amendment.
You had one job to do.
Double secret irony alert. One of my favorite quotes from Hillary Clinton. For me, it means that we need a Supreme Court that will stand up on behalf of women's rights, on behalf of the rights of the LGBT community. I guess she didn't have the AAIP at that point. We'll forgive it. That will stand up and say no to Citizens United, a decision that has undermined the election system in the country because of its way of permitting dark, unaccountable money to come into our electoral system. As dark, unaccountable money from outside sources. You know, we've seen that with Donald Trump to the tune of about $40 million. With Hillary Clinton, $143.5 million.
And the money's coming your way. You don't ask any questions.
That's what's so funny about the Citizens United talk. You have silly Bernie voters and young people who talk about getting money out of politics, and Citizens United has become a buzzword, right? Well, there are two components. You're talking about money in politics, big money in politics. A lot of people are upset by that. Guess what? No one in the history of the United States has benefited from Citizens United in that sense more than the Clintons. But at its core, Citizens United is about free speech. The Clintons want to do away with the aspect of Citizens United that protect free speech. They want to keep the foreign donations to the tune of $140 million while doing away with the right of private, independent filmmakers to create a film exposing Hillary Clinton. This is the kind of corruption that the head writers couldn't even feather into the Underwoods narrative for fear of it being unbelievable.
Democracy is so overrated.
Listen, I get that many of you out there feel that you have no good choice in this election. You're exhausted with the whole process, and I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. Because I'm not just worried about 2016. I'm hoping that this election will at least allow people to break the cycle and see the blatant corruption and collusion that has happened with both mainstream media and alternative social media as we're seeing now. If anything you've heard in this video is new to you, the references are available at louderwithcrowder.com, but guess what? You're probably not informed enough to vote correctly. All of this is so pivotal that none of it should be new to you. And you have to ask yourself, why didn't I know this? How am I missing this? Because when you dig to the bottom of it, you're left with two answers. Either one that's scary, because you realize you've been proactively lied to and you have to ask yourself, how long has this been going on? Or a second scenario, which is also scary, that you're learning disabled and you never knew.
You make me happy.
Hey, if you like this video, subscribe. I'm shaking my bosoms for you. I'm going to continue doing... See, I can't even speak because the bosom shaking is ruining my wordplay. I'm going to keep doing this until you hit one of the boxes. There's a subscribe button below, louderwithcrowder.com for references by clicking my face, or there are two videos next to us. Another one's a top 5 list, and another one is the full show. My nipples are bleeding.